A while ago, I had this really interesting opportunity. I got a phone call from somebody at Agilent Technologies, which had spun off from Hewlett-Packard. Would you consider working as the Senior Director for Learning and Development? It was fascinating to me. It was one of the larger companies that I'd ever worked in. It was a multicultural environment. There were 41 different work sites all around the world, and my client base would be 26,000 managers and employees spread out all over. I would also need to learn to become an expert on virtual learning, which is not something I'd ever had any experience with. So I took the role. I was managing 7 learning and development trainers, all of whom were in different locations. It was the first time I'd ever worked with people who were not in the building with me. Within 6 months, the company and the parameters of my job had completely changed. When I started, I had a budget that was in the millions, but due to downsizing, over the course of a half year, that budget was cut to about $400,000. This had deep implications in terms of what we could and couldn't do. The scope and breadth of what we were going to be doing in learning and development was completely different than how it had been described in the very beginning. In addition to that, the leadership of the organization was going through a lot of changes. There was a phrase that came to mind at that point. Leadership is like dancing on Jell-O. Think for a moment about what it would be like to stand on Jell-O. It wouldn't be very solid, but yet the experience of working in today's shifting and business environment is a lot like dancing on Jell-O. Think about a time in your career where you've had the rug pulled out from under you. Things were described in a particular way, and then they changed. Or somebody made a commitment to you about a project deadline, and then you reached the project deadline and they came back to you and said, oh, by the way, I have too much to do. I really can't get that done, and I'm sorry that that happens to have a big impact on your goals and objectives. Or you have somebody that you've hired and it turns out that they just don't have the skills and competence that you thought that they did. And now you're having that experience of dancing on Jell-O. The ground is shaking, it's not solid, and you have to be adaptable. You have to think in a different way, an innovative way. You're constantly in this position of having to course correct while maintaining the big picture, the sense of what's most important and what can you really rely on. If you consider a leader's responsibility is to cause results, then you can think of leaders as change masters. This is a key concept to the course. In today's business environment, you have to become a change master, correcting what doesn't work, making things better, creating new services and products that are of great value to the organization. There are 3 hidden factors that all good organizational experts know and exploit. 1, that everything is always changing, nothing is solid, and will stay the same for very long. So, thriving in and with change is a critical differentiator in leadership excellence. 2, that nothing gets done or emerges as a result that is not the outcome of many people's help, thinking, assistance, or influence. There are rarely individual heroics, and heroics are not sustainable as a leadership style. Cultivating goodwill becomes a clear advantage given that we need others to get our own priorities accomplished. And finally, 3, the work of leading is inherently dissatisfying because of the rapid, ambiguous, uncertain conditions that you need to make decisions in and lead into. Just when you thought you were doing fine, something new, some frustrating and difficult new change arises, and take all three together. It's not hard to see why leaders must evolve to face the changing conditions of today. So, bringing it back to my time at Agilent, there I was at this global company, and after about 3 months, I began to notice that there were no protocols on how to work across geographies. People would get on a teleconference and they're interrupting each other, or you can't tell who's speaking, or the meeting goes off in 2 different, 3 different, 4 different directions because it's not clear who's controlling the meeting. And it's also very difficult in that kind of environment to figure out how you're going to deal with differences of opinion. To improve the quality of meeting, I began to ask colleagues, are you noticing the same thing that I'm noticing? That here we have no protocols on how to work across geographies. And what I began to realize was that there were a number of people who would like to be allies in developing something that would help us work across virtual boundaries. One of the most important aspects of development, and what this program is really aimed at, is your personal training. That's the reason why you're listening to this and that you're participating. You think of yourself as an adult learner. You are somebody who intentionally wants to further their skills and wants to have better tools. You want to help shape your mindset so that it is the most effective. And that brings the power of intention into clear focus. One of the most important phrases that I've ever heard is that intention guides our actions. Why do people do what they do? When you start looking at a person's behavior, behind that behavior is either an unconscious or a conscious intention. The best thing a leader can do is check in frequently and ask, what is my intention here right now? And that's a great opportunity to clarify. Is my intention to be in this conversation? Is there some value here for me? Is it worth bringing up something that might turn this more into a dialogue? And the first skill set that we're exploring, mindful awareness, assists us in clarifying intention. When we're mindfully aware, we notice what's going on inside of ourselves. By developing a familiarity with our own reactions, we become clearer about what to say or do that would align our actions in this situation with our intentions. Try this now. I'll keep time for this exercise. For the next short while, observe your breathing. Listen to your inner conversation. What are you thinking, feeling? What is your intention right now when you go back to the external world of your work life? Through mindful awareness, we become skillful in having an intention that's aligned with our purpose in this moment. How do we develop mindful awareness? Well, one of the great things, one of the really truly great things, is that mindful awareness is a common human trait. What I mean by that is that all human beings share this trait, the characteristic of mindfulness. There are times in all of our lives when we've either had a brief instant or even a prolonged sense of being aware that we're aware. Like you're in a conversation with somebody, you're noticing that you're having a certain kind of reaction, and you're aware that you're having that reaction. That's mindfulness. That's mindful awareness.